Spanish Town, St. Catherine, a place known for its deep political roots, gang rivalries, and generations of bloodshed. But in the mid-2000s, a new name rose from the chaos. A man so feared, so unpredictable, and so violent that not even his own Don Tesha Miller could control him. Today, we revisit the life and death of Navardo DJ Hodges, the young enforcer whose path of destruction became his own death sentence. His physical description, as circulated by police at the height of his notoriety, painted a deceptively ordinary picture. A 21-year-old man of dark complexion, slim build, about 5 feet 8 inches tall, with thick lips, 1.45. Yet behind this unremarkable facade lay a capacity for violence that would shock a nation already numb by high crime rates. His journey from a foot soldier to a most wanted man is marked by a series of escalating brutalities, each act more audacious and horrifying than the last, culminating in a death that was as brutal as the life he led. To understand the monster he became, we must trace his steps through the blood-soaked streets of Spanish Town, examining each crime, each atrocity that built his crimson reign. Navardo Hodges wasn't born into infamy, but he ascended to it with terrifying speed. By his early 20s, his name was already etched into the annals of Jamaican crime, not as a petty thief, but as a key operative within the Clansman's deadly hierarchy. The gang, under the reputed leadership of figures like Tesha Miller, operated on a code of fear and extreme violence, and Hodges, it seemed, was one of its most dedicated adherents. While Navardo Hodges' name would later become synonymous with the beheadings that terrorized Loreston in 2011, his roots in the Clansman's most heinous activities appear to run deeper, potentially linking him to one of the most significant political and criminal assassinations in recent Jamaican history, the murder of Douglas Chambers, the chairman of the Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC. On June 27, 2008, Chambers was gunned down at the JUTC depot in Spanish Town, a bold attack on a figure perceived as an obstacle to the gang's lucrative extortion rackets. The hit was reportedly ordered because Chambers' restructuring efforts at the state-owned bus company were stopping his food, a colloquial term for interfering with the gang's illicit income streams. While the direct perpetrator and the intricate details of the conspiracy would unfold over years, with figures like Andre Blackman Bryan, leader of the breakaway One Don gang, and Tesha Miller, the reputed head of the Clansman faction, eventually implicated in court. Sources later suggested that Navardo Hodges was a part of the Douglas Chambers hit. This alleged involvement, if true, would have been his brutal baptism into the upper echelons of the Clansmen, proving his willingness to execute high-profile targets for the gang's benefit, and marking him as a man to be both feared and, within the gang's twisted hierarchy, respected. The years following the Chambers assassination saw a steady escalation in gang-related violence in Spanish Town, with the Clansman gang at its core. By early 2011, Navardo Hodges' name was increasingly prominent on the radar of the St. Catherine North Police. The internal feuds within the Clansmen, which had intensified after the arrest of Tesha Miller in 2010, were creating a volatile and deadly environment. It was against this backdrop of internal power struggles that Hodges, along with his associate Amal Roman, also known as Satan, became prime targets for law enforcement. He was even a suspect in a Portmore Domino's killing that had claimed 5 lives days earlier, an attack believed to be part of this same internal feud. In the wake of Morrison's murder, Navardo Hodges and another associate, Raul J.J. Jennings, were formally named as persons of interest by the police. This marked Hodges as a key figure in the escalating violence, not just as a potential perpetrator, but as a target in a deadly game of gang politics. The pressure was mounting, and the lines between rival factions and even within the same gang were becoming increasingly blurred and blood-soaked. The internal strife within the Clansmen was reaching a fever pitch, With Tesha Miller behind bars, a power vacuum had emerged, and ambitious lieutenants like Navardo Hodges were seemingly making their moves. The killing of Speedy Morrison was a clear signal that no one was safe, and that the struggle for dominance would be settled with blood. Just weeks after Morrison's death, the brazenness of the warring factions escalated dramatically. On the night of March 10th, 2011, gunmen launched a direct assault on a symbol of state authority, the Spanish Town police station, exploiting a 45-minute power outage that plunged parts of the old capital into darkness. The assailants opened fire on the police station for an extended period. While no police personnel were injured in the attack, the message was clear and terrifying. The gang was willing to challenge the state directly. Navardo Hodges and Amal Roman were still being sought by police in connection with this and other serious crimes, with a combined bounty of 500,000 Jamaican dollars placed on their heads, 250,000 Jamaican dollars each. This event marked Hodges' transition from a shadowy figure implicated in internal gang hits to one of Jamaica's most wanted, a man whose actions were now a direct challenge to the forces of law and order. His reputation for ruthlessness was now cemented, and his name would be forever linked to this audacious act of defiance. If the attack on the police station was a declaration of war against the state, the events of July 2011 in the community of Loreston, on the outskirts of Spanish Town, were a horrifying exhibition of the Clansman gang's internal savagery and the depths of Navado Hodges' alleged brutality. This period would forever etch his name into the national consciousness as a perpetrator of some of the most grotesque violence imaginable. The reign of terror began on the night of Tuesday, July 19th, 2011. 19-year-old Scott Thomas, also known as Scotty or Speedy, a different individual from Jermaine Morrison. He was a reputed member of the Clansman gang, wanted by police for a string of approximately 10 murders in the St. Catherine North Division. On that fateful night, a group of armed men, wielding guns and machetes, descended upon his home. Thomas was reportedly dragged from his bed, shot, and then, in a horrifying act that would become a grim signature, his head was severed and taken away by his attackers. Police theorized that this killing was the result of a serious internal fallout within the Clansman gang, a power struggle that had cost Thomas his life. The severed head, it was speculated, was taken as proof of death to whoever had ordered the hit. A suspect in this beheading, 22-year-old Durando Davidson, also known as Chucky and believed to be a Clansman member, was later shot dead by police in an operation in Thompson Pen, Spanish Town, on July 30th, 2011. Both women were shot multiple times and then savagely decapitated, their heads also taken by the perpetrators. The nation was stunned and outraged. The motive was initially shrouded in speculation, with theories suggesting the women were killed for talking to the media about Thomas's murder, or that they were targeted because one was related to Thomas's girlfriend, whom the killers had initially sought. Later, in 2019, video recorded confessions from 3 men convicted of these killings, Fabian Gubba Smith, Adrian Campbell, and Rushane Goldson, revealed a more sinister directive. The horror in Loreston, however, was far from over. The very next night, Wednesday, July 20th, 2011, the same group of men, or perhaps other elements caught in the escalating vortex of violence, struck again with even more shocking brutality. Their victims this time were 40-year-old Charmaine Coveratre, a respected minister of religion, and her 19-year-old daughter, Joeth Lynch, a past student of the Queen's School with dreams of attending the University of the West Indies. The gunmen reportedly kicked off the door to their home and opened fire. They recounted that Hodges had given explicit orders for the women to be decapitated because they were viewed as informers. Smith's chilling testimony detailed the phone conversation. Kill Crystal and her mother, 4 of them head fi cut off, and him say, make sure Unu deal with the thing. The confessions described the women's pleas for mercy, Rattray shouting, "The blood of Jesus is against you," and Lynch screaming, "Me no know nothing," before they were mercilessly chopped and shot. Police, including Assistant Commissioner of Police Elin Powell, confirmed that Navardo Hodges was a key suspect in these beheadings, along with several other men still being pursued. The head of Joet Lynch was later found in the Rio Cobre, a grim discovery that stopped traffic and drew hundreds of onlookers. The July beheadings in Loreston created an atmosphere of intense fear, prompting some residents to flee their homes. The police intensified their efforts, tripling patrols in affected communities and placing several areas under curfew. Yet for Navado Hodges, the summer's atrocities were seemingly just another chapter in his violent saga, as the manhunt for him intensified, with the 500,000 Jamaican dollars reward still on his head. He remained a ghost, eluding capture and continuing to allegedly orchestrate acts of violence. The internal feuds within the Clansman, particularly the power struggle that emerged with Tesha Miller incarcerated, were reportedly fueling much of the bloodshed, with Hodges himself said to be seeking to take over control of the gang. His ambition, coupled with his reputed ruthlessness, was painting a target on his back, not just from law enforcement, but from within his own ranks. As the pressure mounted from both law enforcement and internal gang rivalries, Navardo Hodges' actions became increasingly erratic and brutal, extending beyond strategic gang hits to deeply personal acts of violence. His alleged involvement in the murder of his own girlfriend in November 2011 revealed a descent into a paranoia-fueled rage that blurred the lines between gang warfare and personal vendetta. On Sunday, November 6, 2011, Tiffany Thomas, who was reported to have had children for Hodges, was shot dead. She was traveling in a taxi along White Church Street in Spanish Town when the attack occurred. The taxi driver, 44-year-old Wesley Roper, was also killed in the hail of bullets. Residents reported hearing explosions around 10 p.m., and the bodies of Thomas and Roper were later discovered inside the taxi. Rumors quickly began to circulate that Hodges himself was the mastermind behind his girlfriend's murder. The information reaching the Weekend Star suggested that Tiffany Thomas was brutally gunned down after Hodges received information that she was involved with another man, while a high-ranking police source confirmed that Hodges was being investigated in relation to the killings. The specific motive of jealousy, though widely rumored, had not been officially confirmed by investigators at the time. This act, if orchestrated by Hodges, signaled a dangerous unraveling, a willingness to extinguish even personal ties based on suspicion and rage. The murder of Tiffany Thomas and Wesley Roper added another layer to Navardo Hodges' profile of terror. He was not just a soldier executing orders or a strategist eliminating rivals. He was now implicated in a crime driven by personal, possibly jealous rage. This act, however, would soon be overshadowed by an even more consequential transgression, one that would seal his fate in the most brutal manner imaginable. The internal power struggles within the Clansman gang, particularly with its reputed leader Tesha Miller incarcerated, were reaching a boiling point. Hodges was reportedly seeking to assert his dominance and take control of the gang's operations. This ambition, coupled with his escalating brutality, was setting him on a direct collision course with the established order, a course that would prove fatal. His actions were no longer just about external enemies or internal discipline. They were becoming a direct challenge to the very leadership of the Clansman gang, a challenge that would be met with the ultimate form of gangland justice. The paranoia, the bloodshed, and unchecked power were converging to create a perfect storm, one that would soon consume Navardo Hodges entirely. The lines between predator and prey were about to blur in the most definitive way. The pivotal moment in Navardo Hodges' bloody saga, the act that would directly lead to his own grisly demise, occurred in early December 2011. This was not just another murder in the ongoing gang war. It was a direct strike at the heart of the Clansman's established leadership, an unforgivable transgression in the world he inhabited. On Thursday, December 8, 2011, Renice James, a 23-year-old sister of incarcerated Clansman boss Tesha Miller, was shot dead in Spanish Town. Reports indicated that James was traveling in a taxi when gunmen in a white motor vehicle drove up and opened fire, hitting her and the driver. She succumbed to her injuries in hospital the following day. While initial reports did not name Hodges, investigators quickly theorized, and widespread belief within the community and law enforcement circles held that he was the mastermind behind Renice James's murder. This was not just an internal squabble. It was a direct attack on the family of the gang's leader, an act of supreme disrespect, and a challenge that could not go unanswered. Even from behind bars, Tesha Miller's influence was formidable, and an order for retribution was said to have been swift and unequivocal. Navardo Hodges had crossed a line from which there could be no return. The murder of Renice James was the final straw. It was an act that shattered any remaining internal loyalty or protection Hodges might have enjoyed within the Clansman gang. He had become a marked man, not just by the police, who still had a 500,000 Jamaican dollar bounty for his capture, but by the very organization he had served with such brutal efficiency. The code of the streets, and particularly the code within the Clansman, demanded an eye for an eye, a life for a life. In this case, the price for the life of Renice James was to be the life of Navardo Hodges. The very brutality he had wielded as his primary tool, the beheading, was now the fate that awaited him. His own personal demons and his unchecked ambition had indeed destroyed him, leading him to make an enemy he could not possibly defeat zero. The stage was set for the final bloody act of his tragic and terrifying story. The reign of Navardo DJ Hodges ended as violently and as gruesomely as he had lived. Just days after the murder of Renice James, the retribution he had courted for so long finally found him. In the early hours of Wednesday, December 21st, 2011, or possibly late on the night of December 20th, his life was extinguished in a manner that was a hallmark of the Clansman gang's most savage punishments. His severed head was discovered by police in the vicinity of the Sagacor shopping center in Spanish Town, a grim and public display that mirrored the beheadings he was accused of carrying out. Some reports indicated his head had a bullet wound in the middle of the forehead, a common signature in such executions. Shortly after the discovery of his head, police found a headless body with multiple gunshot wounds on Okra Lane, near the Spanish Town bypass. Investigators strongly believed this to be Hodges' remains. The prevailing theory, widely reported and accepted by law enforcement, was that Navardo Hodges was killed by his own cronies, fellow Clansman gang members, in direct retaliation for the murder of Tesha Miller's sister, Renice James. It was a major falling out within the gang that had cost him his life, a classic case of the hunter becoming the hunted. The method of his death, beheading, was a clear message, a brutal form of internal justice that mirrored the atrocities attributed to him. Hundreds of residents converged on the scenes where his head and body were found, a morbid testament to the fear and fascination he commanded in life and the shocking nature of his death. The 500,000 Jamaican dollar police reward was still active at the time of his death, underscoring his status as one of Jamaica's most wanted and feared criminals. The story of Navardo DJ Hodges is a stark and tragic narrative of a life consumed by violence, ambition, and the brutal realities of gang warfare in Jamaica. From his alleged involvement in the high-profile assassination of Douglas Chambers in 2008 through the terrifying summer of beheadings in Loreston in 2011, the personal murder of his girlfriend, and the fatal transgression of killing Tesha Miller's sister, his life was a relentless descent into savagery. His actions characterized by extreme brutality and a chilling disregard for human life left an indelible mark on the communities he terrorized and contributed to the pervasive climate of fear in Spanish Town. His own demise, a beheading at the hands of those he once considered allies, serves as a grim illustration of the cyclical and self-destructive nature of such a lifestyle. He became a monster, and in the end, the monster he helped create turned on him. The name Navardo Hodges may fade from immediate memory, but the story of his Crimson Reign, a chronicle of terror etched in blood and fear, remains a powerful and disturbing reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked criminal ambition and the enduring challenge of breaking the cycles of violence that plague societies grappling with the scourge of organized crime.